evening and welcome to this exciting event. I'm Jack Knott, the Dean of NYU Steinhardt, and I am sure that you are as eager as I am to hear from these extraordinary women at our inaugural Dean's Community Conversation, Women in Music. I want to thank NYU President Andy Hamilton and the members of the Steinhardt Dean's Council for their ongoing support and wonderful welcome. When I arrived in New York City earlier this year as the new dean of NYU Steinhardt, I knew I was coming to a really unique institution, the largest graduate school at NYU and the only school in the world dedicated to the human condition through art, culture, health, communication, and applied science. What I did not know is that I would have the opportunity, like the one before me tonight, to introduce the Dean's 2021 Scholar in Residence, Vanessa Williams. The Dean's Scholar in Residence is a member of the Steinhardt community. They meet with students and faculty and explore collaborations for promoting and fostering diversity and advancing ideas of social change through their art and scholarship. Tonight, Vanessa will moderate a discussion with incredible colleagues she has brought together. These artists represent a remarkable range of diversity of background, genre, and experience. They will explore the roles women have and have not had taken in the worlds of performance, composition, and production, the obstacles they face and the progress that still needs to be made. There are very few artists who have successfully taken on more roles than Vanessa Williams, musician, actor, advocate, author, and fashion designer. Vanessa is also an educator, the daughter of music teachers. Vanessa, through her close relationship with our director of songwriting, Phil Galston, worked with Steinhardt students in individual classes before taking on her current role. This year, she is working with our new contemporary vocal program, as well as with students in our songwriting, music business, and music technology programs. Vanessa also participated in an event with our costume studies program, highlighting the incredible diversity of her career, as well as the amazing programs offered at Steinhardt. So thank you, Vanessa, for sharing your talent and experiences with us and bringing together this truly exceptional panel tonight. The panel members are Rosanne Cash. As one of the country's preeminent singer-songwriters, Rosanne has released 15 albums of extraordinary songs that have earned 4 Grammy Awards and 12 nominations, as well as 21 top 40 hits, including 11 chart-topping singles. She is also an author whose 4 books include the best-selling memoir, Composed. Renee Fleming is one of the most highly acclaimed singers of our time, performing on the stages of the world's greatest opera houses, concert halls, and theaters. This 16-time Grammy-nominated artist has recorded everything from complete operas and song recitals to jazz and indie rock. Her voice is featured on the soundtracks of the Best Picture Oscar winners The Shape of Water and The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. Julian Harvey is an artist and frontwoman of the electronic soul duo Lion Babe. Lion Babe are known for their unique sound and look, blending vintage colors with modern sonics. The success of their major label debut, which included standout collaborations with Pharrell Williams and Donald Glover, led to the worldwide recognition, including global brand campaigns and major festival performances. And it is now my pleasure to introduce Vanessa Williams, the 2021 NYU Steinhardt Dean Scholar in Residence, and our moderator for this evening. Her critically acclaimed work in film, television, recordings, and the Broadway stage has been recognized by every major industry award affiliate, including 4 Emmy nominations, 11 Grammy nominations, a Tony nomination, 3 SAG Award nominations, 7 NAACP Image Awards, and 3 Satellite Awards. Her autobiography, You Have No Idea, was a New York Times bestseller in 2012. And what I'm especially proud of, a strong advocate for equal rights, Vanessa's charitable endeavors are many. embracing and supporting such organizations as Black Theater United, Special Olympics, Broadway Cares, Equity Fights AIDS, and among others. She was honored with the Human Rights Campaign Ally for Equality Award for her humanitarian contributions. So we are really pleased and honored to welcome her here tonight. So Vanessa, over to you.
Thank you, Dean Knott, and welcome, lovely ladies. Can I see your faces and show them all to our wonderful webinar guests? We've got guests here from Colombia, Greece, Winnipeg, Ireland. So thank you so much. And of course, all across our nation. So thank you so much for coming. I hope this will be informative and entertaining, and it'll help you wherever you are in your lives, because we are all women that have had many ups and downs and challenges in our career, and we're here as women in music. So first, I want to briefly talk about how I know each of our lovely participants. Renee Fleming, we just finished working together. We opened the Kennedy Center in September, and we were the first performers on the stage. Can you talk a little bit about how that all came together and what a thrill it was to sing live again?
It was amazing. You know, it had been closed really since March, early March, and it's been so tragic for all of us as performers, everybody really, from emerging artists to mid-career and everyone. So to be able to step on stage and actually have an audience, albeit a small audience, but a devoted audience, and to do it with you, Vanessa, was such a thrill. And I'm a consultant, actually, an artistic advisor to the Kennedy Center. So I said, what do you think about Vanessa and I doing a duo program? And of course, they loved that idea, and it was so much fun.
It was great. Now, Roseanne, we are just meeting, and one of the connections that we discovered in the past couple of days is that all of us are authors, and you and Renee both share the same editor, and your book, Compose, is amazing, talks about your life in music and you as a woman, and we'll do a deeper dive, but I want to thank you for coming and just talk a little bit about the range of genres that you've dipped into in your career.
I think the range is all under the umbrella of roots music, you know, from folk to blues, and that's where I'm most comfortable. There's where my influences are, what my DNA is part of. And, you know, I don't go into Renee's territory, although I have dreams. So I'm here as your token roots artist. Let's just say that.
Okay, now Jillian Hervey, I know her very well because I gave birth to her, but besides that, she has had a wonderful career and graduated college with dreams of becoming a professional dancer, and now has an amazing career as I would consider it alternative pop duo. So Jillian, can you kind of describe what your music is and what your approach is on stage?
Well, hello, Mother. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I mean, I definitely always kind of, in a weird way, because of you and your success of your career, navigated a little separately. And I was like, okay, let me focus on dance, because I knew dance was something I was always interested in, but it was obviously super tied to music, which was something I was always passionate about. But I think just through the dance form is how I really gained my confidence, my voice, and started to even think of what would it be like to be a musician. And then from there, you know, I realized that that was also a forte that I had, that was an advantage I had to other artists that were kind of entering in alternative music. I could dance and I can sing and I can make a real performance piece out of wherever we were given, like, to perform. So I think that kind of taking that alternative route and leaning into that more actually helped me carve a path that not only fulfilled the dancing that I always wanted to do, but also opened me up to, I think for me, more success, because by being a musician, and yes, delving into pop, even though I wouldn't really consider myself pop, but pop can be just marketable. Pop can be something that's for everyone. So that's been able, being a performer first gave me the confidence to kind of even take a chance and try to be a musician. So I still try to operate on stage the same way I would if I was making a dance piece or choreographing something. You know, just really trying to paint the picture of the music and the stories that I'm telling in those, and bring that to stage and do it in a way that I feel is unique. And again, that's really also coming from the people that I grew up loving and admiring, and their movement, their quality, and how they would perform on stage. That's just what I'm just trying to follow the crowd, the
Well,
good ones.
let's do a deeper dive on the people that we love and admire. Mostly you're talking about me, but also your grandparents who are music educators. We all have, our parents were all part of the music business, music education and their livelihood. Renee, can you tell us a few stories about your parents and your upbringing and your expectations as a musician growing up?
Well, it's funny because I had it from both sides, because both of my parents were high school vocal music teachers and very different as musicians and teachers and people, frankly. And my dad, you know, I was a composer. So all through middle school, I wrote and high school, actually. In fact, I composed because I was shy, and it was my way of expressing myself. And, you know, and he really pushed me to kind of go further and to develop my voice, to develop my, you know, that sort of creative voice. And my mother, on the other hand, was a consummate kind of performer focus. So if I did Eliza Doolittle both in 7th grade and 11th grade, and she would come to a rehearsal despite whatever the teachers, the director, or anybody was saying, and she would say, no, no, no. And we would go home and go through the whole thing, and she coached me through everything. And it was so painful, but I even knew in that moment that she was right and it was going to be better. So that's the thing about having both strong parents and also parents who kind of do what it is you want to do. In fact, the irony is, I don't think I ever really wanted to be a singer or a performer. It wasn't my nature. I was very, you know, I just wasn't, that wasn't the thing I liked. I loved the music and I loved exploring. I loved the practice room, the whole, that wrestling with your body and yourself and your emotions to kind of make something happen. That was what I loved. The performance came later, painful.
And Roseanne, obviously having an incredible father with an amazing career. What about that growing up and also those expectations?
Well, first, I just found something I have in common with Renee, which is that I didn't want to be a singer. I was shy. I didn't want that much attention. I liked rehearsal rooms. I liked writing. I liked trying to understand what was going on between body and mind, between where the voice really resides and the nuances of the voice and how to work a note and where to place it. All of those things were fascinating to me. But performing, I didn't want that much attention. I thought it was self-aggrandizing and that you went on a stage to get judged. That's what I thought. After decades of doing this, I realized that it's energy exchange with an audience. It's not about judgment. It's about creating a space for yourself and the audience. And as Bob Dylan said, the audience doesn't come to, you know, feel your feelings. They come to feel their own feelings. So creating the space for that to happen. That's not about my dad. My dad is an iconic artist. And I think it's one reason I didn't want to go into performing. I didn't want to invite comparisons. You know, I didn't want to work my own destiny out exactly in his shadow. And I was a songwriter first, and I thought that's what I would do. But as my dad said to me when I was 12 years old, he said, I see that you see as I see. And that was the truth. We were both had urgent artistic impulses that couldn't really be denied. My mother, on the other hand, was terrified of the whole thing, did not want me to become a performer, did not want me to be in the music business at all. You know, because my dad had a really difficult life and she saw what it could do to people. You got divorced, you got on drugs, you were always gone, your families fell apart. So that was her take on it. So I had a real push-pull about this. And but therein lies the making of an artist, you know, that terrible conflict. So, and here I am today with you.
So can I just kind of dive in a little deeper with that, Roseanne? So as a composer, as a songwriter, was it your past or was it your present that you dive into when you actually do compose a song? And this is for all the songwriters that are watching and listening tonight. Is it the before that you dig into? Is it the now, or is it a combination? And when do you do it? And when do you feel it? And what's the process? Sorry, it's a lot.
No. I meant because I have been guest teacher in Phil's songwriting class, so this is something I'm comfortable talking about. I think the more specific, the better. People don't respond to themes, love, loss. They respond to the coffee cup that got thrown across the room, the window that was streaked with rain, what the red shirt he was wearing. Those are the very specific details that people really respond to and see their own lives in. So specificity is important, whether it's past or present or future. And sometimes it's future, which is fascinating. And I've heard a lot of other writers say this, that in writing songs, you're sometimes writing postcards to yourself in the future. But I find that some themes I obsess about, and I can't stop obsessing until I write every song that's within that obsession, you know? And the other thing about it is to give yourself permission to be insecure. Use it, you know? Afraid, use it.
Yeah.
Go there.
Let's talk about insecurity. Renee, you were terribly staged. You had terrible stage fright. Can you tell us a few of those incidents?
Yes, there were a few periods, I would say, where it was so bad. At the second time, actually, I came very close to quitting singing because it's a kind of it's a misery. It's an incredible misery, and you end up thinking about it day and night, and convinced that you can't walk on stage. So, but I had smart people around me who said, if you stop, it will be very hard to come back, you know, because you tell yourself, oh, I just need a break. I'll just take a break for a while. And in fact, I had one of my voice teachers was still alive at the time, and she would literally come to the theater at the Met and stand in the wings and walk me from the dressing room to the wings and practically push me on stage. And it was the type of thing that once I started singing, it was better. It was the torture in advance of the performance. So I had to learn two things. I had to discover the root of it, which is you go to a therapist and you kind of figure out where this comes from. And then I needed behavioral therapy, because you have to develop strategies for how you're thinking or how you're seeing the audience as judgmental, how you're only telling yourself negative things when you're on stage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It took the really bad period took about 8 months before. And then it was interesting because the fear, which was kind of general, became very specific. It would be about one pitch. And not a high note, a middle voice note, but something that felt exposed, because it was that sense of feeling so completely alone on stage. I think that was so challenging. And when I got over this, I developed a joy for performing and have maintained it ever since, because I think I'm here. I'm still doing it. It didn't stop. I didn't stop. And I'm careful about what I do. I'm careful about preparation. That's one thing I would say. I was sort of learn it overnight, and I stopped doing that after that. Because our singing is a type of virtuosic singing that lends itself, and because the roles, it's not new, they're typically roles that have been done for sometimes centuries. So people are judgmental. They are comparing you to everyone who came before. So that's why I love doing new things, because I think I'm the start of this.
Now, Jillian, you're relatively new to songwriting because you're young. and I know you used to journal when you were growing up. What's your approach to songwriting? And can you talk a little bit about whether it's your now, whether it's your future, whether it's your past, and how you combine those?
Yeah, so again, when I started, I really was not even aware of one. I think I really wanted to stay as far away from things that would have compared me to you as possible. So that was like, don't take voice lessons. I'm going to write all of my own songs. I'm going to collab with people that are doing music that is very different than something that anything that I've heard. I think just really digging into like, what is my unique lane. And at that moment in time, I was like, getting out of college and had a lot of just new thoughts of what was my future going to look like. And I also was getting rid of a lot of things that I had been doing prior, especially a guy. So I think, a breakup is always a good jump start for a new life. And the first song it was the first time I ever really wrote a song. And my producer partner, Lucas, was working with samples. That's something that has become really part of our sound, as well as how we also nod to our love of the 70s and all of this. But it was the sample, this At the Hotel, Eunice Collins. It was like an obscure record. She only put one record out. And her tone and her delivery really was the first kind of world that I found myself being like, oh, I can feel this. This feels like me. And that call and response is the thing that laid the song, And so from there, we had, obviously, our first song was our viral response. That's when all of a sudden labels started calling and doors started opening, and I had one song under my belt. So I think not only like when you're not really paying attention, sometimes that's when the the best thing comes out, because it's really like uninhibited. It's really just what it is. You're not overthinking. I think once I had that song, I didn't try to recreate it, but I thought that I had something figured out. And obviously I learned going into Universal, working with a bunch of songwriters, being thrown into the deep end. My first session was with Mark Ronson, and the next one was with Pharrell Williams. So really just being like a sponge and watching their process, I learned, there's a serious play that goes into it all. Like, you can't take yourself too seriously, but you also you can kind of, I think I picked up more on what didn't work for me. What did I not respond to about what songwriters were trying to get out of me, or what did I not want to say? And then from there, I kind of just went further into that. So I agree with kind of the specificity that Roseanne was talking about. I realized my concepts, I would think of overarching themes, love and all of this, and it would frustrate me because I couldn't really see where I was trying to go. Where was I starting? Where was I ending? And then just from talking to Pharrell and him telling me about someone like Missy Elliott, she's so visual. She sees her whole video before she even starts the song. And that was really a door for me, because even coming as a dancer, always being on stage, knowing lighting and moods that you're trying to create, I started to picture those things preemptively before I started writing. And then that really, allowed me to just have more fun and get out of my own way and, go back to call and response, go listen to the records and stuff that I loved before, try to research what were they doing, what are their tricks, and then, just happy accidents and also just a lot of repetition. I think now I can write so many more songs at a faster pace because I'm not as judgmental as I was before. I used to be so critical, and I just feel like it's better to just kind of keep evolving, keep working, and then so you can look back and then you can see the things that are really sticking, the melodies you don't forget about, the hooks that are just with you, and then okay, those are the ones that you have to share. So
So,
I'm still learning every day.
so Treat Me Like Fire was your first major hit. That's how you got
Yeah.
signed, because that went internet viral,
Yeah, right. That was the beginning of it all,
Right.
Yeah.
So do you think it was, what's your biggest challenge to be considered in working with producers, that you're just the newbie, being a female in the industry and being dismissed, if you have an idea? What's been your biggest challenge in your career as of yet, as a woman?
I definitely think I made the choice to move from major label to independent. I'm now an independent artist. There are a lot of challenges that come with that, but I realized, especially leaving, I went to the new school. I wasn't far from NYU and had a lot of teachers that had crossover, and I just loved the academia of the art I was making, and I feel like when I was trying to have those kind of conversations in universal spaces, it was just so dismissed. Like they didn't really care about the full picture. They would just want to compare you. You're like, okay, she's this artist, like this artist. She has to wear her hair this way every day. Even if she's going in for a radio interview and no one's going to see her face, she still has to have like, pounds of hair on her head. So really just like, it was confusing to me because I felt like Treat Me Like Fire was the song I wrote, the visual I made, the thing that went viral, the most reactive. And then now you go into those rooms and I don't know anything. And I have to just basically give over, by growing, you have to compromise when you haven't even really started yet. So I think that was really frustrating to me, to feel really taken seriously, because I think they think, okay, she's beautiful, she can do things. She'll be fine. Let's just team her up with this person, this and the other, and they'll lead the ship. And I'm like, well, I'm the one that made the ship. So, I think if you trust me, then I can trust you. And I think that whole thing just, it overwhelmed me, and it wasn't fun anymore. And I was more excited about the grit of it, being back in the grind and just doing stuff and putting things out, that I felt that I didn't have to compromise anything, especially since I'm really still just getting started. And so, yeah, it's definitely, the pacing is different, but I think it's something that I can sleep at night about. So.
Now, Renee, the opera world, extremely male dominated. You've got to have some stories about struggles as a woman with all those huge egos, huge talents, and maestros and tenors, and having to deal with a world so large and so full of ego. What can you share a couple stories about how you struggled as a woman and how hard it was in that world of opera?
Well, I felt, I have to say, for a lot of the time, first of all, I was almost unaware of it for so long, because I just took it for granted that it was dominated. Certainly the power was dominated by definitely men, very few women. And in fact, it was remarkable all the way through, whether it was an orchestra or chorus, you could almost look at people and know what job they had, which is not right. And I felt protected by the art form to some degree, because what's an opera without the soprano? I mean, I didn't have that issue. I was always working and always in demand. Where I had difficulty is pushing the envelope, singing outside of the genre. For many years, I was told, no, you can't do that. You'll ruin your career, you'll ruin your legacy. Also, not just genre, but actually certain types of music were absolutely no. And so I just ignored it all and went my own way, because I thought this is a Western European art form. It's centuries old. I'm an American. I grew up listening to all kinds of music and loving it. And it's my career. So if I ruin it, it's my fault. And I'll take the blame and the responsibility for that. But in fact, it's been really great. And some of the things I did have opened doors for other people saying, oh, geez, I didn't know we could sing that. I didn't know you could do that other style. And that's not to say for young artists that they shouldn't devote themselves to the initial craft, because it is so challenging. I'm singing in 10 foreign languages. The styles are different depending on which century and which country you're performing something from. And so all of that is hard. But being a woman, I'll tell you where I really felt challenged, and it was hard. No matter how successful I became, if I was in a meeting with, groups of managers or the record company, no matter who it was, I just didn't have the power.
Mm.
And so I would have loved to have had more independence. And I have friends who do, and who have been very brave women, and who aren't singers. They do other things. I'm thinking of Maria Schneider, who leads a big band, who's so brilliant. So that was a source of tremendous frustration for me. And I can't say that I ever really overcame it in terms of feeling like I was absolutely in control of my destiny. I had a lot of control, and I was able to make a lot of choices myself, but it was always a fight. Let's put it that way. Everything was a struggle.
Mhm.
So Jillian, I'm sorry to hear that you had that experience. I was hoping it would have changed for you and your generation. This mentality of how can we make the most money, which I'm amazed that even exists at this point, because everybody knows record labels are struggling, but maybe at the highest echelon of Universal, they can still do a lot. So good for you. Bravo to you for stepping away from it.
Thank you. I mean, to be honest, I think it really is a general reflection of a lot of systems in our world that people sometimes. I had to step away and look and not take it personally, because I realized, okay, my label, which was a subsidiary of Polydor, they're worried about losing their job almost every day, because different little parts of the label will just destruct, or someone gets fired and then the whole thing is off. So I think people just, they couldn't really put their head in what they were actually doing because of all the other things and all the power struggles that everyone's having. I
That's
think,
fair.
and I think also the reason I kind of had a different hope and thought, okay, maybe the times are different. I knew my mom had struggled with labels. I knew my dad said, those systems are older now, but I had a woman who really brought me into Universal. She was the label head, and I think knowing, okay, the head of my label is a woman, this feels different. But realizing that, she was just as much caught up in it all too. I felt almost cheated by the woman that I thought I was gonna, that was gonna help me out. And so I think that's hard, but I think that's the whole thing, changing the systems, and like we're doing now in government and all of this, like you have to start from the top. The people at the top tier that are making these trickle down decisions have to be different, varied, and have a different mindset, that they can fight, they can deal with those everyday struggles, and then so the rest of the teams can operate doing their best work. But yeah, I appreciate that, and yeah, well, I'm better now.
So Roseanne, we talked before, and you told an interesting dynamic about rock and roll, and again, ego and male ego and struggles as a woman in that world. We talked about alternative opera. I'd love for everyone to listen and hear your thoughts about rock and roll and men and ego and struggles as a woman.
Well, I actually wrote an essay about this for Billboard during the height of the Me Too movement. Same as Renee, I kind of ignored it because I was so desperately passionate about what I was doing, and I knew this was my life, that I just put blinders on and I let it roll off my back. But the sexism was intense. There were men who were just bad boys, and then there were men who were real predators, and you just had to just keep going, keep your head down. And the business was structured, like Renee said, that the power structure was, there were no women in A&R, there were no women producers, there were no women engineers. If there was a woman in the business, she was in PR. That was basically it. And the marketing meetings were about how to sexualize you. I sat in on those marketing meetings, the only woman in a marketing meeting about me, where they says, well, our main goal is to make her fuckable.
Wow.
In front of me, I mean, it's so insulting on so many levels. Like,
My God.
yeah, so it was disappointing to me to hear from Jillian too, that that's still going on. But of course it's still going on. I mean, I went to hear Helen Mirren speak recently in a conversation, and they said, well, are you worried about all of this in Hollywood? And she says, no, I'm worried about it in the entire culture. It's not just Hollywood. It's not just the music business, but things slowly seeming to change. People are becoming more aware. I talked to a young girl at NYU recently who wants to go into A&R. There's a group called Women in the Mix that keeps data on how many women are producers, how many women are engineers, you know, the business, music business. And it's abysmal right now, but I'm hoping it gets better with women Jillian's age. And the last thing I'll say is that, you know, rock and roll and the larger umbrella under it, including country, folk, blues, all of this, they not only is bad behavior in men tolerated, it's actually marketed. It's a marketing tool, bad behavior for men. Women don't get that leeway or advantage. So it's a dangerous territory, you know? If you move into that and it's marketed that it's great for men to be bad and we can sell that, and you try to go toe to toe, it's tough. It's a dangerous world. I don't mean to leave it with that, because I do think it's getting better. And I think that our power lies in our authenticity and our belief in our own work.
No, but is there a fear that there's going to be retribution if you stick up and say, no, I won't do that, or no, I won't have that image? Do you think there is an underlying fear as an artist that if I don't kowtow to what they're saying, I'm going to get some retaliation? Or
well, I mean, I've run into I wouldn't call it retaliation, but canceling. You know, if you don't do this, you're deleted from this. But the thing is, Vanessa, is that every time you say, oh, I don't really want to do that, but okay, I don't really want to do that, but okay, you move outside of yourself ever so slightly every time you do that. And it's not only painful, you don't recognize yourself after several years of that. So, and I don't mean to say that because I kept my head down and did my work that I'm stronger. I know some women who actually gave up, who said, I can't be in this business. It's too hard. It's too painful. Mm-hmm. For some reason, I just was able to keep going. And again, I don't want to make it seem like I was, you know, tortured and tormented every step of the way. I wasn't, but there was a certain paradigm that you had to navigate to do what we do.
Yeah. I think that's one of the worst feelings when you're an artist and you have to compromise over and over again. This is my intention. This is what my idea is. And they said, but we can't. And I had to deal with that through my entire career. And I told that to Jillian. I said, it's always a compromise, and you're always trying to get ahead by a compromising. And that's hopefully getting better. But you know, that's just part of also being a woman in life, trying to move ahead and trying to appease everyone. And that's one of the things growing up, always trying to have a safe space and making sure that everyone feels okay. And you end up burying your true feelings because you're trying to keep everything. And I'm not projecting this on anyone, but that's one of the things in my age group that we've learned to do: be nice, be sweet, be accommodating, and just get through it. And luckily with your generation now, you can say, no, I feel disrespectful. I don't feel heard. I don't feel this is a safe space, and I don't want to cooperate. I don't want to interact. And you have much more advantage of having your voice heard because of how the space that you're living in now. We've got I've got a lot of questions, but the fuckable one really kind of blew everybody. Is there any advice that, so Roseanne, is there any advice that you would tell young women if they feel like they're in that situation, or just feel like there is not a safe space for them to really be who they are and excel in what they want to do?
I don't know. I mean, I can only speak from my experience. I would say first, be safe. Don't put yourself in dangerous situations physically. But I mean, I kind of want to hear what Renee has to say about this, because I think a lot of it has to do with trusting yourself. And
Well, I really honestly didn't have the power base in my field was not really heterosexual men who using
Right.
their power, trying to use their power. It was a different group. So I didn't really face that problem, but I, first of all, no was my power. Just
Yeah.
no, I'm not going to do this engagement unless, these things happen. I also learned to protect myself by creating a whole series of filters. So really, I was living in a cocoon, protected by people who answered the phone, by people who took all the engagement calls, even conductors eventually. I became a really averse to kind of interacting with the outside world on a regular basis, which is not a great thing. But that was what I developed in order to function, because I felt that the demands being placed on me were very high, and trying to manage it all with my two daughters, God bless them. That was such a gift to me. Vanessa and I share this conversation. You do too, Roseanne, I think, our schools. So that I just made all of these barriers so that I could not have that awful feeling of somebody either, being rude or trying to, or manipulative, or gosh, any number of things, even just sort of being aggressive, frankly, and trying to get something from you. It's in a certain point in our careers, people want something from you, but literally all the time. So, and that was hard on me. So that's how I responded to that.
I think that's important what you just said about buffers and having a support team. I should have mentioned that because, we're not islands. We need our support teams. We need buffers to help us navigate.
Who is your support team, Roseanne?
Well, I mean, I have, it's my manager, my business manager, my agent, that whole series of walls between me and the public. But also my husband is very protective. I mean, that's part of our dynamic, is how protective he is. He enjoys it and I enjoy it.
Well, let's talk about joy. And you mentioned, Renee, about kids. Thank God we had the opportunity to have full careers, but also take time to have children. I have 4. I know you've got 2 amazing girls. And we talk about taking them everywhere, all over the world. What they're on your hip, they're in the dressing room, they're in the trailer, they're in the audience, they're at sound check. Can you tell the story about your sound check when you were I think it was Sage and
Oh,
the
right.
noise.
Right. Wait, I just want to finish. So first of all, Sage, my youngest daughter, she was really small, and she got her leg. We were in Prague, actually outside of Prague. I was singing in a castle, and as one does. And Sage got her leg caught in one of the seats out in this little amphitheater. And I was in the middle of a rehearsal, and the nanny couldn't quite extricate her, and she was screaming at that point. And so I just kept singing and walked over. I forgot about this, by the way. I only learned this again recently when I ran into that nanny, and she's been telling the story all this time. But I ran over and kept singing, never kind of took a breath, and got her leg out of the seat. And so this nanny, who's actually a brilliant young woman who runs Sing for Hope, which is one of my favorite charities, said she just couldn't believe it. But this is what it is to be a performer and a mother at the same time. You're split in two, and you hope for the best. By the way, back to that last conversation, I learned those things from a sports psychologist who someone connected me to, and around the time when I was having that second bout of stage fright. And he said, because he deals with his clientele were all high level tennis players. So, and that's another performance that's kind of alone. You're on your own, and you're in front of these masses of audiences, and you win or lose. At least what we do is subjective. There's an in between there, but he said you have to protect yourself. And in that list of protecting yourself is don't read reviews. Other people should read it.
I never did.
Translate them for you in the way that they know you'll be able to receive it.
I agree.
So I listened.
Yeah. So can you talk talk a little bit more about the mind-body relationship? I know you do a lot of work with your own webinars and stuff. Can you just give us a little snippet of what the work that you've been doing?
Well, I mean, learning how to sing, for me, because of this virtuosity that's required, just we don't have any microphones, and it takes a toll on the body. So I had to kind of unravel this mind-body connection where the tension was. I had a lot of somatic pain, which would manifest and this is all kind of related to performance anxiety, but it would manifest as I'm so tight that I'm not going to be able to sing this performance tomorrow. And another kind of way so I think I had this underlying notion that unless I suffered a lot, I wasn't going to be able to succeed. So I can tell you it's exhausting. But I was determined and I've kept going. But so that's part of it. But mind body, I think, also was not recognized early in my career. So I would go in and talk about this. I know there's a connection. Anybody who sings knows it, because these are involuntary muscles that you have to kind of wrestle into submission in a weird way. So I just started to get more into neuroscience, and I've had this incredible gift of connecting the National Institutes of Health to the Kennedy Center, and really advocating for what scientists do to understand us and to understand the creative impulse, to understand why evolution makes music and the arts not just powerful, but necessary in terms of childhood development, social cohesion. If you've ever seen a toddler respond to music, we know that it's innate. It's 100% innate. And so scientists now are not interested in this because they like music or they like the arts. They're interested because they want to understand the brain. So I encourage young artists to think about, especially if you're kind of finding that you want to look at other paths, to think about art therapy, music therapy, even just volunteering, especially now, in a way that you can share yourself, you can share what you know, and really bring joy to people. Frankly, after COVID, a lot of people are going to have trouble breathing. So that's another way that we can contribute as singers, to share what we know about breathing, to help people want to sing, which could be helpful. So that's become a huge passion. I did a webinar all summer, as Vanessa said, highlighting a lot of the work that's being done at the intersection of health and the arts.
Now, Roseanne, I know you've got children and grandkids. Congratulations. Can you talk a little bit about that being a joy, but also what were your influences that when you grew up, the music that moved you and kind of lit you up and kind of drove you to what your style is and inspired you?
Oh, wow. That's, I could talk a long time about that, but I'll give you the headline version. I responded to certain chord progressions that were really rooted in blues, folk, Appalachian music. And I responded to story songs and to imagery and to characters and character development in songs from a really, really early age. And I responded to concept albums where there was one arching narrative over all the songs and characters reappeared. And I think I spent a lot of my life trying to make the perfect concept album because of that. And I attempted it, and was fairly successful early on and fairly successful fairly recently doing kind of that thing. I almost forgot your question because I went off on that tangent. And also what Renee said about neuroscience really captured me, because I've also been really interested in music in the brain. And I've done a lot of events with Dan Levitin, who wrote This Is Your Brain on Music. You may know Dan.
I love Dan.
Yeah. And that the healing power of music really fascinates me. And I always say that we're in the service industry, something you touched on earlier too, that artists are, in the service industry for the heart and soul. And we're essential workers too.
Mm.
Thank you. Thank you, Roseanne, for that. I'm going to quote you.
Okay.
So Jillian, I haven't forgotten about you. You want to talk a little bit about your early influences and what kind of made you you in terms of music?
Sure. I think it was a combination of growing up listening to what you were playing in the car. So I loved Shaka Khan and Earth, Wind and Fire, and just a lot of beautiful harmonies, and 70s in general have, like, Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, Al Green, just all of these like unique voices. I think everyone had a distinctive voice that I ended up being drawn to, whether it was they were, gravelly or really powerful. I always remembered their tone. So I knew that that was something that was important to me, especially now. To be frank, it's like I can hear, all these different singers, and I cannot even tell the difference between who is who, because not only are they all being like run through the same vocal chain and the mixes are the same, it's just like the delivery is the same. And for me, that doesn't do anything for me. I think when I can really hear, the frequency of where this person comes from, that's what's exciting to me. And so I've always tried to just mirror, my confidence that I figured out just being a dancer and being with my body and having a safety within my body. I mean, even going on stage, it's so interesting because I think I'm naturally kind of shyer, and then on stage is actually the place where I'm very free, and I actually feel the safest up there, because it's kind of like no one knows what I'm doing except me, and even then I'm following something that I can't really even define what that is. So I actually felt that the audience doesn't necessarily have the power. I have the power because they're there to have this exchange and to kind of feel whatever the frequency that I'm giving off, and then they can respond in their own way. And Roseanne, I thought that was really amazing how you were just saying people go to shows to experience themselves. I'm definitely going to take that with me, because sometimes it's, I think even going through things, you expect a performance to have some type of feedback that you thought, oh, the song, can't wait for this song because they're going to respond this way. And then they don't. And then they respond in a whole different way to a song you weren't even really thinking about. You're like, oh, that's just a song in the middle of the set. So you just never know. There's so many circumstances that change everything. And for me, I think no matter what, when I think of what I'm inspired by, what I try to do, it is like I want people to know my voice is distinctive. No matter what record I'm singing, I want people to know, oh, that's Jill. Like I can hear her. And our sound continues to evolve because we're still learning, we're still growing. We don't have a niche, and I think that's kind of what keeps me interested. I think a lot of people have a formula and they love it and they just go and they keep it going. But for me, I always kind of have to grow. I have to challenge myself to do something a little bit differently than I did on the last record.
Yeah, I think part of the reason why you are attracted to the 70s, which I play a lot, and you say everyone is distinct, is because it's not auto-tuned. You hear the voice exactly the way it was behind the mic, and there might be some tricks. We're talking special effects. If the Beatles are doing a specific album, and they're moving the vocals strangely, but everyone there was no tricks in terms of the vocals. So you hear Bill Withers the way he sounds, and when you hear him live with a guitar, you hear him the way he sounds, and there's no there's no real modification. So I think in that, those tones are what goes straight to the heart. Right. And that timbre is what you remember and what you yearn for. So I wanted to ask, I guess, a question on what your thoughts are on electronic music and auto-tune and getting the pitches perfect. And is that, we're so used to it now on the radio, is that an asset, or are we doing ourselves justice? Is it an abomination? And, are we going to ever get rid of classical music because everything is going to be auto-tuned and electronic? I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are, Renee.
Well, I was a producer, actually a record producer, who said he's really shocked that people are coming in now and they're actually young singers are able to copy and sound like they have already had auto-tune applied to their singing. I find that hard to imagine, but you know, he's a major record label guy, so it's probably true, you know, because there's so much talent out there. I've learned over the years you can copy anything.
Yeah.
As my kids would take on every new style, every new singer, whether it was, you know, it's a change in intonation or style or the way that a vowel or a consonant would be pronounced. But I want to just say, I want to make one more statement before we finish about our subject matter, which is that, because I was talking about myself as a performer, but as a sort of an administrator, and in those roles, what I see and what I failed to notice for my entire career was the lack of diversity, actually, in every possible way in my business has really is hurt the business. And the more that we find complete, you know, sexual, racial, and religious, every possible kind of diversity from the bottom up and back down again, for administration, for chorus, orchestra, everybody who's backstage, the better off we're going to all be, because they're going to be more interesting. Jillian, what you said about the label wanting to put you in a mold, I don't think this would happen as much if we had all of these different voices. I certainly feel in our country today that if more women were in leadership, we wouldn't possibly be in the situation we're in right now. But now's a good time to start. And there's so much talent in this space. All of you and everyone who's tuned in today, I have a lot of hope.
And Roseanne, what would you say to since we have such a young audience, to your 20, 24-year-old self about your abilities and your future and what's most important?
Oh God, Renee said it really well. That you create a support group, that you show up for the muse. That's what my friend Stephen Pressfield says, is that just getting hit with a ton of inspiration isn't enough. You have to apply your discipline to it, or else it's nothing. It's not art if you don't bring your discipline to your inspiration. You have to refine those instincts over and over and over and over and over, and become a beginner every day. You know, even when you achieve a level of mastery that you know you have the mastery, still be a beginner in your heart, because then something new and inspiring and wonderful can happen. So be a beginner, bring your discipline to your art, and trust yourself.
Renee, your 20-year-old self?
Absolutely. Well, I say don't accept your limitations.
Yeah.
You know, you hear and we all have this sort of tendency to say, well, I'm this, I'm that. You sort of label yourself at a young age. And I think, no. You got to keep chipping away and wrestling with that and expand whatever it is you think you are, expand it, keep expanding it every day. And by the way, it doesn't stop.
Yeah.
And Jillian, you're just 10 years away from when you were 20. So what would you say to your 20-year-old self?
I would say definitely just, first of all, practice joy, enjoy all of it, enjoy all of the lessons, all of the hardships. Just stay in your true, authentic spirit, which is curious. I think women are curious, and we're excited, and we're joyful and empathetic and compassionate, and don't ever lose that, no matter how much, you know, stuff gets thrown at you. And also that the real joy, the real work is the process. The moments on stage are fleeting. You know, the records come out and then they're no longer yours. So if you don't have joy in that work and the grind, and that doesn't get you excited, then you have to figure out another way. I think that I've realized that they're really, you know, you only get to the mountaintop every couple of times a year, if that, and you can't let that those markers define what you're doing. You're, by focusing in on yourself, you know, by going each day and just growing in little bits or in big bits, you're improving, and really the process is really all there is. And it's a beautiful process if you allow it, it to be that.
And mentors, always look to learn from people just like us on the screen, but always ask questions, be curious, find out who you love, and then find out where they went to school and find out who their teachers were, and ask questions, because that will enhance your path to wherever you're meant to go. Thank you so much, lovely ladies. You were amazing. And this was thoughtful and provocative. I love you all. I'm going to pass it to Dave Schroeder, who is the director of music and performing arts and professions. It's been wonderful. And again, thank you so much. And Dave, you've got it.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Dave Schroeder. I'm the chair of the Department of Music and Performing Arts Professions at Steinhardt. And I'd like to thank Renee and Roseanne and Jillian, and of course, our Dean, Scholar, and Residence, Vanessa Williams, for sharing their lives with us tonight. MPAP is most proud and honored to host these great role models and important contributors to the creative arts. Their achievements and actions offer much needed guidance and provide us with hope for our students from all backgrounds. There is no doubt that women have a great significance in music. And at Steinhardt, we take pride in giving voice to those underrepresented and commit to sharing our platforms with those who will partner with us to create an inclusive culture. Tonight is yet another step in that journey, and I hope you will all continue to join us down the road. To learn more about MPAP's upcoming events and to become an active member with our music and performing arts profession community, please follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And on that note, we say goodnight from NYU Steinhardt for now. So good night, everybody. Have a big wave for everyone. And it was such a pleasure having you all here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Night.
Bravo, Vanessa.